Gilligan's Island aired for only 3 seasons on CBS, from 1964 to 1967. After what was only supposed to be a 3-hour boat tour, the SS Minnow becomes shipwrecked on an uncharted tropical island following a typhoon. The 7 castaways include the blustery skipper, his bumbling first mate Gilligan, a millionaire couple named the Howells, a curvaceous movie star named Ginger, the sexy farm girl Mary Ann, and an ingenious science professor. Despite their dire situation, they managed to survive on a diet made up of fish and coconut cream pie, and were aided by their trusty transistor radio, and a seemingly never-ending parade of guest stars, who managed to drop by their deserted island, including a movie producer, a rock band, Russian cosmonauts, and a jungle boy, among others. Yet somehow, they never managed to be saved. Bob Denver almost didn't get cast as Gilligan, since he had had a successful run on another TV show called The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. When he was suggested to Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of Gilligan's Island was against it, because he didn't want a beatnik type on the island. He was looking for something more like a stumbling but innocent type. Thankfully, when they did meet, Bob Denver was able to prove to him that he was the right man for Gilligan. The shot of Gilligan during the Season 1 opening, when the song says, "The mate was a mighty sailing man," was taken from the original unaired pilot. The wizard robe worn by Gilligan in the 3rd season episode Lovey's Secret Admirer was also worn by a character 10 months later in the 2nd season episode of Star Trek, called Cat's Paw. So either the Star Trek wardrobe department borrowed it, even though the shows were produced by different studios, or they loved the design so much they copied it. It was more likely that the costume was rented by both production companies from one of the numerous costume warehouses in Los Angeles. Alan Hale Jr. was on location in Utah filming a movie when he got a call to come back to Los Angeles to do a test for the series. He rode a horse to a nearby highway, hitchhiked to Las Vegas, and flew to LA to test with Bob Denver. Hale had a tendency to address people as Little Buddy. Prior to Gilligan's Island, Hale had a guest role on The Andy Griffith Show in 1962, on an episode called The Farmer Takes a Wife. He just so happens to refer to Don Knotts' character, Barney Fife, as Little Buddy on several occasions. So this trait was written into the series, and Little Buddy became Skipper's signature term of affection for Gilligan. It is now widely used by fans as a nickname for Bob Denver. If you notice the skipper's left hand, he wears a green emerald ring. He wore this ring in honor of his father, Alan Hale Sr. It is referenced in the 1st episode, Waiting for Watubi, where the skipper thinks he is dying and wants to give the special ring to Gilligan. The skipper often broke the 4th wall, looking directly at the camera. With that, and his vocalizations while doing physical comedy with Gilligan, the skipper appeared to be imitating Oliver Hardy, an homage to the great comedy legend. Natalie Schafer, who played Lovey, had a contract that stipulated there would be no close-ups of her on the show. The reason was producers knew her real age, which was 13 years older than Jim Backus, who played her husband Thurston. It was not until years later, after the series ended, that her co-stars found out her actual age. Natalie Schafer said she initially did the pilot episode, Marooned, in 1962, for the free trip to Hawaii. Afterwards, Schafer was in Mexico on holiday when she got a telegram from the US. She read it and burst into tears. Everyone had thought Schafer's mother, who was ill at the time, had died, and they began to offer her condolences. But Schafer said the reason she was crying was because the pilot for Gilligan's Island sold, and she had to stay in Los Angeles, and that meant she couldn't move back to New York City. The role of Thurston Howell III was specifically written for Jim Backus, who was personal friends with Sherwood Schwartz. However, at the time, Backus was not immediately available, and was also too expensive to be cast for a supporting role. Eventually, Backus became available at the last minute, and liked the script enough to join, and CBS even approved a budget increase just to cast Backus. The original series pilot had another actor in the role of the professor, and 2 female castaways, Ginger and Bunny. Both of them were secretaries. Because of the cast changes, the original pilot was unaired until it was broadcast by TBS in 1992. Allegedly, Tina Louise, who played Ginger, also had a stipulation in her contract which required her to be listed last in the credits, which is why in the first season, after the announcers sing "The Movie Star," they follow up with "and the rest," as opposed to listing the Professor and Mary Ann. Bob Denver complained to Sherwood Schwartz about this and thought it was ridiculous. All the cast members should be listed in the opening credits. Schwartz and company said their hands were tied by Louise's contractual stipulations, and Denver replied by boycotting the production. He threatened to not start filming the second season unless the Professor and Mary Ann were listed after Tina Louise. Finally, Schwartz relented, and the rest is TV history. Although it is widespread belief that 1960s television was forbidden to show a woman's navel, such anatomy is seen frequently in this series. Mary Ann's belly button in particular is most commonly shown, but also occasionally that of Ginger, and some bit stars and extras as well. Supposedly, the producers discovered a loophole in the rules to allow this, but by 1966, this was not seen as a big deal anymore. The ship's name, the SS Minnow, sounds like it was named for a fish, but in reality, it was named after Newton Minnow, head of the Federal Communications Commission in 1961. Minnow was the one who called television America's vast wasteland, and Sherwood Schwartz didn't care for the guy, so he named the soon-to-be shipwrecked ship after him. Later he found out that Minnow actually enjoyed the joke, and the two eventually became friendly with each other. The radio seen in virtually every episode was a Packard Bell AM radio, model AR-851. The small silver handle and telescoping antenna were added by the prop department, despite the fact that AM radios do not use telescoping antennas. The antenna was likely added to lend credence to the castaways' ability to pick up radio signals so far from civilization. According to producer Sherwood Schwartz, the 7 castaways were actually representations of the 7 deadly sins. Gilligan was sloth, Skipper, wrath, Professor, pride, Mr. Howell, greed, Mrs. Howell, gluttony, Ginger, lust, and Mary Ann, envy. One of the most burning questions among male viewers of the show has always been Ginger or Mary Ann. Though there is no real answer to that question, it seems to lean in favor of Mary Ann, based on the amount of fan mail received. Dawn Wells, as Mary Ann, received more fan mail from young boys, while also receiving quite a bit from young girls too, who saw her as a role model. Tina Louise, who played Ginger, on the other hand, got fewer fan letters, and most were from grown men. The difference is that Mary Ann was the pretty and sweet girl next door that every teenage boy would love to go out with, and that many girls could relate to, while Ginger was a one-dimensional, gorgeous bombshell that had men drooling. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and please consider subscribing and sharing Recollection Road Entertainment with someone you know. If you enjoyed this video, consider watching this playlist. As always, thank you so much for watching.